Good morning, Husker fans. Welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette, and we're back here on Monday morning here for another episode of the podcast. We're going to look back at what was a huge recruiting weekend, a huge recruiting week for Nebraska football, a hugely successful week. They had the 7-on-7 tournament, and then they had a bunch of official visitors over the weekend, and they did create some positive buzz. So we're going to recap all that. We'll talk a little bit about the House settlement too. Nebraska also added a national championship wrestler, so we'll touch on that just real briefly here today. But before we get into all that stuff, please make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, get into the comments section. And Danny, how are you on this Monday morning?
Still working off a hangover from Saturday, but we're doing all right. Good weekend. I was celebrating the recruiting buzz in Lincoln. That's what I was celebrating. So,
Well, there was definitely plenty of that. I mean, going into it this weekend, we talked about Nebraska needed to generate some positive momentum on the recruiting trail, and they have done that. At this point, it's safe to say. So there's been quite a bit of news that's come in since Sunday, and a lot is still trickling in since the official visit weekend just concluded. But Nebraska has been projected to land a couple of 2026 recruits by, I guess, starting with Hayden Ainsworth, the 6'5", 285-pound offensive lineman from Mississippi. He's got Brian Munson, I think Sean Callahan, Steve Wiltfong. So guys from the Ole Miss beat are projecting him to Nebraska. So that one really feels like a truly done deal with Hayden Ainsworth, the 3-star guy there. I think he's ranked in the 700s. According to the On3 industry rankings. So not like a super highly ranked guy, but it would be a really solid addition, I think, to this 2026 class. And then Cameron Wilson, the Syracuse edge, 6'5", 215 pounds, had 17 sacks last season. So this guy can rush the passer, very twitchy, athletic, long, been committed to Syracuse. He's a top 500 guy overall, and he's got some projections now to flip to Nebraska. This was his second visit. He visited also this spring. So Nebraska really created some positive movement there, and that's two commitments I think that they're kind of trending in the right direction for. So we'll start with those guys. What do you think about the potential of flipping Cameron Wilson and also adding Hayden Ainsworth?
He's only Wilson is only a 3-star recruit, but I could see that ranking go up in short order. I mean, last year this guy had 118 tackles, 17 sacks, like you mentioned. And he was, 85 solo tackles. He's just a beast. And I think it's one of those cases where, because he plays in Florida with a lot of football talent, maybe he gets a little underrated. But, I mean, he's not an average 3-star recruit, so to speak. He has a very good shot, in my opinion, of becoming a 4-star. I would love him off the edge. I've always said that edge rushers are their own position that needs to be focused on in recruiting right now. It's not just like, hey, let's get this guy and then put him on the edge. Now you're seeing a lot more specialized edge rushers, and they're starting to get some in the program. But Wilson would be a fantastic get, I think. And again, I know some people were complaining about landing a 3-star, but don't let that ranking fool you. He's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. And the size, and yeah, so I think Florida State's been still sniffing around. There's been some other schools that have some visits coming up as well. But yeah, we'll see. And yeah, very long, athletic pass rusher, super productive. So I think that would be, a really great start for Nebraska if they could add him. Not a great start. I mean, they've already got kids in this class, but that would be kind of a jump start, to this, summer push that they're going to be, trying to make. I mean, they've got 4 commitments right now. I think they're going to try to probably get somewhere around 20. I think that's probably what the number will be. Maybe a little bit under 20. I don't expect it to go over that. But that's kind of where I see it. So yeah, and I think there was some other positive movement. Talking about tight end Luke Sorensen. He recently released his top 3. And it was Penn State, Nebraska, Ole Miss. He released that right after he visited Penn State. And they had the crystal ball, so they kind of seemed to have the momentum. And Nebraska, I think, kind of stole that away a little bit this weekend. He told Chad Simmons of On3, about his official visit that this will be hard to top. So I mean, I don't know exactly what that means. I mean, guys say stuff like that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, CJ Bronaugh, I think, made a similar comment. Not the same comment, but like when he visited Florida, like, oh, this is going to be really hard to beat. And so I mean, guys say things like that all the time. So, as far as Luke Sorensen, do you think Nebraska did enough to overtake Penn State, to be the leader for Luke Sorensen, the 3-star from California?
No, but I think they're going to be in it in his recruitment to the end. Because honestly, Penn State has a track record of developing tight ends as well, so that works in their favor too. But I do think that they're very much in it. I'm not sure if they're going to overtake Penn State, but as a tight end, honestly speaking, it would be hard to say no to Penn State.
Yeah, Penn State's they've done a really good job at tight end. And yeah, so we'll see what
I hope
happens
so.
there.
I hope they do.
So yeah, it's really interesting because with On3, the prediction machine, there hasn't been much movement at all for Sorensen. USC is still listed as the favorite, and they're not even in the mix at all. And 24/7 Sports has been doing it a little bit differently. They have like a staff, like crystal ball, and I believe that's like what Sorensen, where he's at, or how he's been projected to Nebraska. So we'll see what Steve Wiltfong and Brian Munson and all these guys, where they kind of weigh in on this recruitment. I think it's a lot closer, I would say, to a 50-50 race maybe than where it was before with Penn State. So we'll see. Ole Miss still in the mix too. I know that they've also got it's Lincoln Watkins is the other tight end that Nebraska's kind of pursuing. So that's down to the Huskers in Florida. So I thought that was significant, but to me, the most significant news, I think this coming weekend was CJ Bronaugh from this past weekend, and he told Brian Munson of Husker Online that he wanted to feel the family atmosphere and that he felt that at Nebraska. And the words that he used in his interview were that he's firmly committed to Nebraska at this point. So do you believe that? Do you believe Nebraska really truly has kind of cemented the commitment of CJ Bronaugh at this point?
No kid is firmly committed until you see him on the field for all 4 years. I mean, in today's day and age, that might be a cynical view of things, but and I'm not saying he's lying or that he's not committed to the program, but in today's day and age, I find it hard to believe that a kid is firmly committed anywhere. And I don't know, maybe that's just a simplistic look, but if that means, if that statement in his words means that he's staying at Nebraska, then I'm definitely excited.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. He does have official visits scheduled with Florida State this weekend, and with Penn State after that. Florida's also been in the mix. Miami's been kind of lurking around. Michigan even got in with an offer. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch some of these teams, and I think you're definitely going to see a difference now that the House settlement has come down, because some teams, like Michigan, was being really conservative with some of their NIL stuff because they wanted to see like what the House settlement was going to be like. So I feel like there's going to be teams that were kind of laying in the weeds that are now going to be, now that they know what the rules, so to speak, are going to be, they might be a little more aggressive. So yeah, you're right in the sense that just because he doesn't flip now doesn't mean he can't flip, in November or December or whatever. But I do think that Nebraska at least did enough to maintain, their spot in the lead. And, to be honest, this is the most important recruit in this class. I mean, 6'1", 10.34 in the 100, tremendous ball skills. Like this guy has first round pick potential. So It would be great to see Nebraska kind of, continue to add, some great cornerbacks in the pipeline, because I do think that, it was disappointing what happened last year, obviously with Tommy Hill, but Sayre Wright and I think Andrew Marshall this year are going to both be really productive. I love some of the, Donovan Jones and some of the Florida guys, Amari Sanders. So
Larry Tarver, yeah.
But yeah, it would be great if they could keep CJ Bronaugh committed, because I just like Trey Taylor would be, one of Matt Rule's great recruiting wins. I think this would be a big recruiting win, even though it didn't feel like it at the times per se.
And one other recruitment I want to touch on is wide receiver Larry Miles. He's going to make his decision on July 1st, and Nebraska's been heavily involved in his recruitment as well. Got an offer. They seem to be trending in the right direction for him, but that's another guy that I could see Nebraska getting for the 2026 class.
Yeah, out of Orlando. Again, lots of Florida guys kind of trending lately with Nebraska, but
Which is good, I think.
So he's 5'10 and a half, 170 out of Orlando. Speaking of Larry Miles, 467th overall in the 24/7 Sports composite rankings. So he's got official visits to Pittsburgh, Kentucky, and Louisville. I believe he's going to come back for an official visit to Nebraska. I think I saw that somewhere too.
Yep.
And he last year had 68 receptions for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns. So a really dynamic player. Again, a little bit shorter, probably more of like a slot type guy, but sometimes those guys can be dynamic downfield options too. I mean, look at Steve Smith Sr. I mean, he was 5'9" and was one of the best deep threats in the NFL for a long time. So just because a guy's a little bit shorter doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be like a Wes Welker slot type, and Larry Miles is a very productive receiver that they could be adding to this class.
Hey, if he's a Wes Welker slot type, like a Patriots Wes Welker slot type, I'll take that.
Yeah.
One other recruiting note, there was a lot this weekend that I wanted to touch on really quickly. Speaking of Florida, it was reported by Rivals John Garcia Jr. that Nebraska and Florida are the early favorites for Kamori Whitfield. He's a two-way kind of safety. He's in the 2027 class, and he's part of the Orlando First Academy, which is a school that Nebraska is reportedly trying to really establish a pipeline, according to Tim Verges of Rivals, who does great work, by the way. So really interesting to see the Florida kind of feel for these upcoming classes. And it sounds like, they are making, at least a strong impression in the state. And to me, and I don't know if you agree with this, but to me, it feels like Nebraska, they tried to recruit Florida previously under Scott Frost, but I mean, here to me, it seems like, they're hitting a little bit more on recruits and, having more success and making stronger inroads.
Yeah, I mean, I think Florida with Phil Simpson is going to be kind of a key part of where they're recruiting. Yeah, I think. I mean, but really, it's they're trying to recruit at a national level too. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes with some of these other guys that were on campus, like Kelvin Obot, Rex Waterman, some other guys that haven't really got mentioned. We're talking about Ahmad Hudson, the two-way or the tight end, the 4-star tight end, and he wants to play basketball and football in college. So Nebraska's offered him in football and basketball. He got the offer from Fred Hoiberg over the weekend, but he's been offered by Ohio State too. So that is going to be a very national recruitment, but it does seem like Nebraska does have a foot in the door with Trey Taylor. But again, I'm just I still got to see how much that's going to actually lead to, some commitments. Like we'll see. And I know that, in the older era of recruiting, it really did matter. But in this new era of recruiting, I'm just not sure. Like I know he's created a lot of buzz and I think he's doing a really great job, but I'm just not sure how impactful, that peer recruiting is ultimately going to be when a lot of these recruitments, I think, are still going to come down to money and probably maybe even more so now that the house settlements come down, because even though we've got, this salary cap, I guess, of sorts for, teams, it's not really going to act it's not really going to act like a salary cap at all, because high school recruiting is going to be crazier than it's probably ever been now that the house settlement has come through. So I don't know, it'll be crazy, but yeah, I think Nebraska's in a good spot though for the 2027 class especially, and I do think they can really generate a lot of positive momentum. I know I did a post kind of leading into the weekend, and one of the comments was about where they're ranked right now and all that stuff. And it's like, I don't care about recruiting rankings in June. I really don't. I mean, that's great for USC and some of these schools that are ranked number one. Like, that's great. But for Nebraska, like, I'm just not that, come talk to me in September and October. And I'm not saying they're going to sign like a top 10 class, but I don't think they're going to. But I do think they have a good chance to get into the top 25. So I think anybody that's like freaking out about Nebraska recruiting right now just needs to take a deep breath, because they had a very solid weekend. And I think that they're going to have a very solid June, and I think they'll be in double-digit commitments by next month.
And with that being said, USC's class is pretty damn impressive. I went back and looked at it again, and man, what a class USC has put together. But yeah, no, I agree. Nebraska tends to do a lot of their work, around the summertime period, and late November, even early December, right before signing day. So I'm not worried at all.
So a couple of things before we'll talk about the wrestling here in a minute. I did want to touch more on the house settlement while we're kind of on the recruiting topic because I've like listened to Pete Nakos and some of the things that he's been reporting and talking about, and it's gonna this is gonna get crazy, I think, for high school recruiting, is because you've got these revenue share payments. So FBS teams can or at least the major teams, I guess, can essentially have like 14 to 15 million dollars to pay their football rosters this season. So like the idea I guess part is going forward is that everybody will have a similar amount of money, but we all know that this is college football. And so do you really think that the Texas A&Ms and Georgias and Ohio States and Alabamas are just going to and the Oregons of the world are just going to stand by and let there be a level playing field? No, there won't be. And so what Pete Nakos has been reporting, and again, all this is kind of just new territory, but basically, with all these states that have these NIL rules for high school kids, so if your school is recruiting a kid from a state that allows NIL, colleges like Nebraska, like for these kids in Florida, for instance, they could pay them as much money as they want to. They could pay them as much money as they want to commit. They could pay CJ Bronaugh $1 million to commit, and Miami could come in there and pay him $2 million to commit. It does not matter. It's not going to be subject to this new NIL clearinghouse. So that's how teams are going to get around it. And then the other thing I think that's going to happen, and I saw a CBS reporter kind of mention this, but teams are just going to go back to doing what they did before and paying guys under the table. And then they're going to say like, hey, we'll give you, they're already talking about recruits getting paid to come on these visits. Kirby Smart said, some guys, they're getting paid like 5-10 grand to go on a visit. So, you're going to have to, so you're going to have to pay these guys. And then the other thing that leads into is, okay, so if kids are getting paid to go on visits, if I'm going to commit to Nebraska, what are you going to pay me to not go on visits? Because if I'm CJ Bronaugh and I get paid $10,000 to go on a visit to Florida State, and you don't want me to go on that visit, what are you going to do to make sure I don't? So that's teams are going to have to pay that way, and so I don't know. I think this is going to put more money in the pocket of players, but in terms of high school recruiting, I think it's going to be more open season in the Wild West than it ever was before.
Nebraska was already pretty late in the NIL game, and now they just started to catch up a little bit. And now with this, I feel like it's just going to set them back again. I really do, and it's going to show. It's going to show who has money and who doesn't have money. And just from a Nebraska perspective, this is not good.
Yeah, I think it's
fall behind again.
Yeah. And I'd be worried if I was any program that's not, really one of the Texas teams, Miami, Oregon, those teams are gonna, really dominate recruiting. Like they have been. It's I don't know. Maybe it's not going to be as big of a change because that's what they've all been doing NIL wise anyway. So, but I don't think that this house settlement is in any way going to lead to like more parity or anything. I think it's just the rich are going to get richer and the ones that aren't rich are going to be left behind. So, it's NIL fundraising and all that type of stuff and boosters and, hell, boosters and stuff like that might be even more important now because you're going to need, and the other thing is not only you're going to need these guys to give money, I guess, for the high school recruits, but then you're going to need actual NIL deals for guys like Dylan Raiola, and big ones, because that's going to be a big part of it, and they have to be above board. So, you're going to have, businesses that are willing to, really work with you on that. And so I don't know, it's going to get.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say I think it's going to get really messy, and I think there's going to be lots of lawsuits. And I think the big teams like Oregon and I just think we're going to get to a point where there's basically no regulation, but I also don't know how we can live in a world like that where, coming out of high school, like I get coming out of high school and there's crazy stuff, but there needs to be at some point, players who are getting this money need to, have some sort of commitment beyond one season, in my opinion. So we'll see if we eventually get to that point.
And truthfully, and this might be controversial, but I don't know if Nebraska has that strong a network of businesses and boosters in order to, make a lot of major deals like other programs.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I know Nebraska's got a lot of resources, so I mean, we'll
That's what we
see.
keep hearing anyway.
But that's what I'm like. Maybe instead of renovating the stadium, just save all that money to give to players. I don't know. I'm not, but I don't know how. I honestly don't know how it's all going to work. So like, can you just pay high school kids off your athletic budget? Like, I'm not sure how that's going to work.
And even still, there might be some money movement moving around of put
Yeah,
this amount of money in the athletic budget, or we can move this here, and we can take stuff from the I don't know from the concession budget. I'm just using an example, and put it in the athletic department budget now for this player, and it's going to be a lot of money shuffling now. Not that there hasn't been, but I don't know. This isn't good for Nebraska.
And then, well, what's even less great for Nebraska is that on the basketball side of it, now you've got teams like, so Creighton doesn't have football, right? So what are they going to do with that? They're going to spend almost $20 million on basketball.
You're
But
gonna have
then
a
that
Gold
was
Palace as a basketball arena with all 5-star recruits by the time things are done.
And that's like St. John's and everybody too. But that's where this is a reporter from CBS. I can't remember exactly his name, so my bad. But it was a really good article, and I mean I don't think he was wrong at all. But he was like, so do you really think that like Alabama and some SEC school is just going to cede that recruitment because of the revenue share? No, they're going to find another way to get involved and get into it. So I mean, we'll see. I think it's going to be really interesting. I'm interested to see how it plays out. But again, I think from a Nebraska perspective, I think it's good for this season and the next few seasons because at least all those guys that wanted to be Huskers, that Matt Rhule was talking about that said like, hey, coach, I'm a Husker and I don't want to go somewhere else. They won't have to go anywhere else unless Matt Rhule shows them the door. But I don't think he's going to do that. So,
No.
so that'll be good. And it will be interesting, to see how they do like extra scholarships and if they do fully scholarship baseball. And because I think that they will do that, but like some schools are saying that's going to cost like an extra $5 million just to get the scholarships. Like, if you add like 70 some scholarships. So I think Nebraska is going to do that. I don't think they're going to spare expense in that regard, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. And I think we're in for a lot of changes over the next few years and a lot of lawsuits over the next few years. So buckle up for that.
I don't think Nebraska will spare expenses, but I do think you're going to see some disparity when it comes to bidding wars. I don't know how long they'll stay in a bidding war for certain players or certain recruits, and I think it's going to come down to maybe a lack of resources, or maybe this will cause people to pump a lot more money into the football program or the basketball program. Like you just brought up a really good point, Creighton. I mean, Creighton can put however much money they want into basketball, and from a Nebraska recruiting perspective, that's going to make things really tough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know
It
how you're
already
going to
is,
get.
you
Well, it already is very tough. Yeah, I don't know how you're going to ever get a really good player from Nebraska to stay in Nebraska, like to play for the Huskers. Like it's going to be so hard to have to beat out Creighton. Like if Creighton and Nebraska both want the same player, like it's going to be very hard financially for Nebraska to pull that off. So I mean, that's just the reality in basketball.
Then again, like you said, how's that different from now?
True. I mean,
No?
it's not different from now. I mean, look at the transfer portal classes. I mean, Nebraska wanted almost all the players that Creighton got. So, I mean, Josh Dix or whatever, like he was the top guy on Nebraska's board and they couldn't even get him on campus, or maybe they got him on campus. But I mean, you knew as soon as he went to Creighton, that was a done deal. So, I mean,
yeah.
That's why Fred Hoiberg, I mean, that's why he has to get creative because he doesn't have this. So he's got to go get guys from mid-major conferences that can project up to Nebraska and get international players. And so, like that's why when people are talking about running Fred Hoiberg off, I'm like, you need to be careful because there's not a ton of coaches who can win at Nebraska like Fred Hoiberg has won these past few years. Because I mean, it's an uphill battle, and you need a guy who not only can identify talent, which I think Fred Hoiberg can do, but he can also get more out of players than like they got their previous stop. And I think Bryce Williams is a great example. Like when Nebraska landed Bryce Williams out of the transfer portal, literally nobody was like, this guy's going to be a future NBA player. But Fred Hoiberg was talking like that. Go back and look at the press conference and his comments on Bryce Williams, and you'll see like Fred Hoiberg can find diamonds in the rough. I think he might have found one in Kendall Blue. I'm not saying he's going to be a Bryce Williams type, but yeah, I think just long story short, let's appreciate what we have in Fred Hoiberg because he's got a tough job.
And I think I'm not going to sit here and say that the Nebraska men's head coaching position is not a desirable one, because it definitely is, given the Big Ten and stuff like that. But there's a certain ceiling to the program that may not make the job as attractive, and to have Fred, lead the program, I think is certainly a positive.
All right. So last thing I wanted to touch on today, a big addition for the Nebraska wrestling program, which they finished runner-up to Penn State this last March, but they added AJ Ferrari, a 2021 national champion. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. Now, you should say he's had some issues in terms of, I'll say off the mat, I guess, off the field. He won a national championship. He finished third last year for Cal State Bakersfield, was 22-1. But the year before that, he enrolled at Iowa, but he punched another player on the team, and so then he was later kicked off the team. He committed to North Carolina, but he went back in the portal because he was denied admission to North Carolina. He's also been had some legal issues as well, sexual battery while at Oklahoma State. So he was kicked off the team. So he has had a little bit of a checkered past, just to be aware of that. But he obviously has finished in the top 3 twice. And when you look at this team that's got, I think, 7, 8 All-Americans now with him, definitely a strong addition to this roster if they can, help him keep his head on straight and not get in trouble or not have any other issues, which I think Mark Manning will be able to do. I think they've got a very strong culture. So I think that's a good move for Nebraska, and hopefully this kid, who's a tremendous wrestler, if he can just avoid some of that stuff, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was able to win another national championship.
Yeah, this wrestling program, when you look at the roster, like you said, so many All-Americans, a lot of talent, and Mark Manning has been a stabilizing force for the program. And when you look at Ferrari, he's such an impactful wrestler. He brings another piece to this program. Very solid on the mat, very experienced, and so I think this is a great addition. I have confidence that he'll be able to keep his head on straight. And when you talk about loaded programs, we talk about obviously football and basketball and things like that, but I think the wrestling program is going to be something really to be excited about this coming season.
Yeah, for sure. And so Ferrari, to look back at his career record from this year, so he won his championship as a freshman. He was 20-1, and then as a sophomore, he was 10-0 for the Cowboys. But then he got hurt, he got injured, and then he had an Olympic red shirt. So that's why he's got 2 years of eligibility left. So he's 30-1. So he's 50. So he's 50. Got a 52-2 career record with 2 top 3 finishes in his career. So that's, in terms of transfer portal additions from wrestling, you can't add a much more impactful, addition than that. And Antrell Taylor, of course, will be back. They lost Ridge Lovett, who was one of the 2 national champions from last year. But Antrell Taylor, who's from Nebraska, he'll be back. So two national champions on this roster, a bunch of All-Americans, and who knows, man, maybe a team that can make a run at Penn State. I don't know. I think that would be pretty shocking, but Mark Manning seems very determined to try to get this team over the hump before, he probably walks out the door and retires. So I don't know. I wouldn't bet against him.
Yeah, no, he's a very solid coach, and Nebraska's lucky to have him. So I think it'll be tough because Penn State is obviously top dog, but I think Nebraska can make a run.
So at the very least, it seems like they got a good chance to bring home another trophy. So, and that's you talk about men's programs that are competing, at an elite level, and then and wrestling's about it right now. So, football, I think football and basketball are getting closer. Baseball won the Big Ten title, but in terms of teams competing for national championships in major men's sports, it's wrestling right now. So let's tip our cap to those guys, and keep that in mind next year when the season rolls around. But all right, you guys, I think that's all the stuff that we got for today. It's been a big recruiting weekend. We'll be back with another episode here on Thursday, so don't miss that. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comment section, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.